Synthstrom Deluge is once again a remarkable tool for turning these quick ideas into something much more musical. I'm going to show you a little bit of how I approach the Deluge from a guitar player point of view. I should preface this by saying I'm by no means like a professional player. I'm mediocre at best, but I know a couple of tricks that sound really good on this machine specifically. The very first thing I'm going to do is just create a simple kit track. I'll use the there we go, the preset number 0, the one that sounds sort of like a 808. I'm going to change the volume a little. I think something like that is probably good. So now we have a kick track. That means we don't have to rely on a metronome. I think I want to set it to something like 104 beats per minute. And then by pressing anywhere on this row and the black encoder here, I set up an audio track by pressing learn input, and anywhere on the same track I can set the input channel to left with monitoring, and hopefully that will change how you hear me a little bit, because now all of a sudden this tiny little microphone over here should be audible. Boom. So that's all I need in order to get going. So here's my guitar. I have tuned it. I hope it should sound all right. I'm going to play 3 very simple chords. One is some kind of A variation, one is a G variation, and one is a F variation, I guess. Very, very simple strumming. Okay, let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. There you have it. That thing that I just recorded, the clip, is a little bit too long, so I'm just going to enter the clip. I'm going to scroll all the way to the right. It says that it's 9 bars long. I want it to be 8 bars long, so I tap anywhere on the very last bar, or the very last column. Scroll back to where it's the 8th bar, tap the last part here, and tap it twice. Now I can no longer scroll beyond the 8 bars because I've effectively changed the length of the entire clip. That's the first part. So I'm going to redo that. Well, actually, I'm going to keep that exactly as is, but I'm going to create a second channel just like it and do it again. So anywhere on the third line, click that one again. I can use the same learn input settings as I used for the second one, but I'm going to see if I can press and hold record and just make sure that these are both set to green, and I think purple is fine, but it can also be set to red. As long as it's blinking, it should be fine. So let's record that one more time, but on a new track. Let's try it. Same thing applies one more time. I'm going to enter the clip, scroll all the way to the end, tap the last line, go back to 8, tap the last line twice, and now I have the same recorded phrase twice over. I forget who came up with this, but it was called like the wall of sound, and one of the audio producers from way back in the day, it may have been the crazy killer guy Phil Spector, but I'm not entirely sure. But what he did was effectively this, like recording the same phrase a couple of times over and then panning it out to the far sides. And by doing so, I'm going to show you what that sounds like. So still in the clip, I'm just going to pan this all the way to the left, I think, and then I'm going to go in and change the other one so it's all the way to the right. And I'm going to change the learn input because that's going to be annoying if it's going to keep doing that. Okay, I can hear myself too much. Okay, if I play it now, you should hear a slightly different, very, very wide stereo field feeling that sounds a lot deeper than what I had before. Which I think sounds pretty good already. I like to do a third one and then keep it a little bit more quiet in the middle, just to sort of tie it together. So let's try that. Same thing again, press anywhere on the line, press the black encoder, learn input, make sure that it's set to left with the little monitoring dot. Hold and press record, make sure that this one's not recording, and let's do it again. Same thing applies, scroll to the end, trim it so it's a little bit shorter, and now if I just press and hold anywhere here, I can turn down the level a little bit because it's still centered. And if I play it now, and I'll remove the learn input stuff, it should sound pretty good. Yeah. So I think I'm done with the guitar for the time being. I'm gonna go in and record some automation because that really makes a difference. I'm gonna mute 2 of the tracks. I'm gonna go into the first guitar track that we recorded, and now I'm gonna change to the cutoff frequency modulator thing, and I'm going to record the filter sweeps. So just me doing this. That's the only thing I'm gonna do. So let's try that. Let's record and play. 2, 3, 4. Let's make sure we mute that one, and let's make sure we unmute the next one. This is a really good way of turning the recording into something that sounds a bit more vintage, a bit more analog. Obviously this is a digital machine, but by tweaking these things, recording the automation filter sweeps, you can make it sound a bit more like actual analog vintage recording gear, as opposed to just a karaoke backing track that nobody paid attention to. I see a lot of people using the presets as is on the Deluge and elsewhere, and I think if they just went that sort of extra mile with making sure that the automation is recorded, and that they just spent a little bit more time trying to soften it up or making it a bit more organic sounding, it would make such a big difference. So that's why I'm making this video, I suppose. Let's record the next one. And as you can tell, it's pretty subtle, but when I play these together, you will see that it makes a big difference. Same thing with the third one, so I want the other 2 to be muted. Okay, let's try it again. When you play guitars and when you record guitars, it quickly becomes quite muddled, I suppose. There are certain frequencies within the guitar playing that can be a little bit overpowering, and they don't really add too much, but if you start layering them together, it can just, it can remove some of the distinct character from the guitar sounds and just sound amateurish, I guess. It's something that really changed how I think about recording music. When you think of it from the lowest bass frequencies to the highest treble frequencies, the guitar is sort of, I don't know, there's some low end, some high end, but a lot of it is in the middle. But by trimming down some of the high end that we did now, we create a bit more organic feel. But if we trim off some of the lower end altogether, we can make sure that each instrument that we add has its own space to breathe, and it sounds cleaner and a bit more maybe professional even. A quick way of doing this is by using a high pass filter. So we're already in the low pass filter. By clicking this, changes it to the HPF, the high pass filter. By dialing this up a little bit, we effectively filter out the lowest frequencies. We don't need to automate this. I suppose you could, but we don't need to. Let's just do that for all 3 of the guitar channels that we have. And then the third one, make sure that it's done here too. And now I'm going to play all these together, and we can hear what it sounds like, because it should be a big difference. That sounds cool to me. I just want to add a little bit of reverb on all of them. So again, just holding down anywhere on the track. If I tap the reverb button, it cycles between small, medium, and large. I like the large one the most, and then I just dial it up to taste. I'm just going to play it through while I add this. Cool, I want to add some bass to this. I'm going to use this tiny little U bass. It's like a ukulele, but it's a bass, and it sounds pretty good. It was, the strings were too close to the fretboard, so I just inserted a little purple pen that I found lying around, but it seems to work, so I'm happy with it. Same thing all over again. I'm going to press anywhere on this track, press the audio track, make sure that the learn input is set to left and monitor, and then I'm going to just improvise a little, and then I'm going to record it right after. Let's record it, see what it sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that worked. Let's see what it sounds like. Let's play it. Okay, that works. It sounds a little bit boxy. Obviously, in part because the instrument is so small, but there are a couple of things that we can do to change that. Still in the clip view or in the song view, it doesn't really matter. I can just make sure that we change the cutoff and the low pass filter. So we want to filter out some of the higher frequencies, which will make it sound bassier, but that's good because that means we leave a bit more space for the guitars. So let's just dial that in so it sounds good. Yeah, and I'm going to turn up the level a little. Just because it's a bass doesn't mean that there are lower end frequencies that don't sound, that we don't need effectively. So let's go back into the high pass filter and just filter out a little bit, like the very lowest of the lower end. The sidechain to me also makes a difference in just the volume ducking. So based on I think the kick and the snare in the kit track we have, we can make the bass channel duck some of those. It mixes things up a little. It sounds like it's gelling together a bit more, but you'll see. Also add a little bit of chorus. So the next one, moderate and depth. By tapping this one, we can get to chorus, and we can dial this up just a little bit. I don't want to overdo it because it's still very acoustic sounding, and I don't want to change that too much, but let's see where we can get to. Sounds good. Okay, now we have the basics. What we can do now is add a quick little synth track. So the bass is obviously in the bass register. The guitars are more so in the middle. Let's add something that's a little bit higher up. I think we can add a simple synth, or yeah, let's create a synth with more treble in it. Let's add a new one. So shift synth, that's a new one. It sounds not super interesting, but we are going to change that. So we can start by changing the release, shift, release. It's too loud. I'm gonna dial it down a little. Sure, and then reduce the sustain and decay by clicking either shift and sustain, shift and decay, or just on the side here. gives us effectively like a shortcut to get to those things. Okay, Shift or anywhere on the side here, and PW for pulse width. The sound we're hearing is an oscillator that is square wave shaped, and by changing the width of the square waves we can make interesting sounds, but we can also alternate this a little bit so it becomes I don't know, more evolving in its sound and better sounding to me. So anywhere on the side plus PW, turn this up, you can hear the difference really quickly. But if we decide that maybe 15 or 16 is a good starting point, we can change it even more by tying this to the LFO, which is the low frequency oscillator, effectively a value that goes between 0 and 1. But if we just tie that value between 0 and 1 to the depth of the pulse width, maybe it became a little bit convoluted there, but you'll be able to hear it. So we have a wave, that's the LFO, the low frequency oscillator, and we're going to tie that to the value of the pulse width. While this is still blinking, Shift and LFO1 and dial up the value. So this is how much that value between 0 and 1 and the low frequency oscillator is affecting the pulse width. Hopefully you can hear that over time, it's very subtle, but it changes over time a little. So the sound will evolve. And this depth that I'm changing, let's set that, yeah, it's good. And then I'm gonna slow down the LFO because it sounds like it's a little bit too fast. Shift, rate LFO1, turn that down to, I don't know, 15, 17, it's good. Obviously the keyboard or the piano roll or the keys or the pads on these are not velocity sensitive. But if you only play the same pad velocity all the time, it sounds a little bit contrived and static, and yeah, again, back to the karaoke machine. But there's a good way of changing that too. If I hit Shift and then level master, set to 11, I think that's great. If I hold down Shift again and tap random, I can dial up. You can hear every time I press it, it's giving it a random velocity. Granted, it's not controlled by me and the intentional key presses, but it still gives it enough, I don't know, vibrancy, life, where it sounds good. So I think 22 is too high, but yeah, like 9, sure. So now every time I press this, it will sound a little bit different, which is cool. And then I'm gonna start the piano roll, this isometric layout, and see if we can find something that sounds good together with the guitars. Let's add some reverb too. And some delay too. And we can change the cutoff frequency for this one too. So using the filter, we can dial it down a little. And actually, since we have a synth, let's do this. Go back to just the synth track. Shift frequency, it's set to 38 now because I just changed it a little. But that one is also something we can tie to the LFO. So hold Shift down again while it's blinking and press LFO1. Turn it into, I don't know, 10. You can hear how it's changing a little over time. I don't want to overdo it, so maybe 6 is a better value. And then back to here. Let's see what we can record. Okay, and then we want to scroll up, look at the notes, maybe change them a little bit. Let's see. How about this? Oof, that does not sound good. Okay, let's. This is what I want. By pressing the side scrolling button and play, you can start at sort of where the what would we call that? We don't have to start from the beginning. We can start at the very moment where we are zoomed in. You'll see, like this. As opposed to nifty trick. It saves me a lot of time. So instead of starting from the beginning, side scroll bar, play. Change the first one. Something like that. Like this. And I'm going to turn up the sidechain a little again because it weaves it into the drums and the guitars and the bass a little bit more. Also, it sounds like both the filter and the random volume might be a little bit overpowering, so I'm just going to dial those down a little bit. 38 and LFO, turn that down to 4, sure. And then the master and the random, turn that to 6, sure. And let's add some more delay. By clicking down the golden delay encoder, you can cycle between normal and ping pong. Ping pong is stereo, left to right. It sounds better to me. It sounds more open, wider, more interesting. Cool. I don't think the drums are that interesting. I'm gonna add some more. I'm gonna press Shift and Kit, and this is where we get the initial instrument, kit instrument, and this is where your own samples would be loaded in, and you can cycle through them depending on the structure that you've set up. If I go to Simon, that's my name, I can go into some of the samples that I've created myself. I think this one's pretty cool. Casio, what is it, MT500? Yeah, MTS, what is it? MT500, yeah, that's right. Okay, cool. I like that one. And then by clicking anywhere on the next row and Kit again, gives you the option to add the second one. I want to add a snare drum. I think the RX, is it RX5 or RX11? RX11 is good. And then do it again. I want to hit back and this is a hi-hat sample from the song Superstition. There we go. And then I'm gonna mute the first track because I don't wanna play with that anymore. And I'm just gonna do, obviously this will sound machine gunny, you know, da 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 da, like this, which is not very interesting. But if we turn it down a little, if we use some of the high pass filter just to remove some of the higher end. And we could even do shift frequency to LFO, dial it up again, and make sure that it does that slow filter sweep that I like, and change the rate of the LFO to something slow, a nice like 13. And back. yeah, you see how it's like slightly out of sync with the guitars, but that to me actually adds something. It makes it sound a little bit more analog and interesting. Let's add some very simple drums, or kick drum and snare drum. It's a little bit too loud, the whole thing. I had a quick listen back. I think it probably needs a little bit more of a guitar solo, guitar melody, something on top of it. So I'm going to add some more. So it's going to be very similar to what we've done before. I'm pressing anywhere on this new line in the song view, clicking the black encoder, setting this up to be an audio channel. I'm still going to use the built-in microphone even though I'm playing something like this, which might be a little bit crazy to some of you. And obviously if you want something that's very studio production, hi-fi, you wouldn't go with this built-in tiny little thing. But for most day-to-day, you know, even if you're making a demo or just trying to create something that is a rough sketch, I think it works beautifully. It's tiny, but it's simple, and I mean, it's right there. Why would I do anything else when that just means more work and costs a lot of money and stuff? So I'm gonna go with this one. I'm gonna make sure that the learn input is set to left with a dot, and then I'm just gonna improvise a little and record something and see where it takes us. Same thing as before. Press and hold the record button. Just make sure that all the other ones are a solid color so they won't overdub anything that I've done in the past. Yeah, that works. Let's try that. So I'm just entering in the actual clip and pressing record, and you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn this so that the microphone is a little bit closer to where I am, because I guess the proximity makes more of a difference when it's such a tiny microphone. Let's try it. Close enough. Now that we have the recording, let's go back out here, make sure we turn off the monitoring stuff, and then same as we did before, let's add some of that high pass filter just to remove some of the lower end of the frequencies that we have recorded, to clean it up a little bit and make it sound a little bit more intentional how we use that particular section of the sonic landscape. Maybe we can add a little bit of delay, a little bit of reverb, a couple of, yeah, maybe some chorus or other effects. Let's see what it sounds like. I know that sometimes guitars are not very loud, and I've had people ask me about pedals before. If you plug a pedal into the line-in with this thing, it's not going to be a problem. But if you still feel like it's a little bit too quiet, then you can press Shift and Saturation, and you can turn that up just a little bit. Don't overdo it because it starts introducing some distortion, but at least initially it's really good for just boosting the signal a little bit. You can hear the difference here. Perfectly usable, I think. But I'm going to turn it down because I don't need it, and just the level increase is a little bit cleaner, less distortion. sidechain to this too. I'm going to record some automation for this one too, just for the low pass filter, because I think it sounds better. Let's try it. Yeah, I'm going to go over the full loop that we have here and just adjust some of the levels, but we are pretty close to what I would consider something that's usable at least for a loop, or at least as a starting point for an arrangement that you can put in your actual DAW should you choose to, or at least, you know, if you want to sing on top of this, or if you want to create a simple demo, this is kind of all you need. You can create something that sounds like a song, right? And we started with something very simple, just a couple of chords on the guitar. So that's what that is. I'm going to let that sort of play out while I just make those tweaks. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.